The double kick came without warning. Two Navy SEAL instructors, both over 6 feet and 200 pounds, drove their boots simultaneously into Maya Reeves' ribcage and thigh, with enough force to slam her spine against concrete. 282 operators watched her body crumple. Some expected her to cry. Others expected her to quit. What they didn't expect was for her to stand back up with the kind of calm that only comes right before someone breaks bones on purpose. 7 seconds later, both men were on the ground screaming, and Maya Reeves hadn't even raised her voice. Now, before we show you exactly how a 5-foot, 4-inch woman left 2 elite warriors unable to walk, drop a comment telling us what city you're watching from. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what you're about to witness isn't just about a fight. It's about the moment respect stopped being optional. Maya Reeves had been standing outside the briefing hall for 11 minutes before she walked in, and she'd spent every second of those 11 minutes reminding herself why she was here. Not because she wanted to be, because 73 Navy EOD specialists had died in the past 4 years, and 41 of those deaths happened because they froze under psychological pressure, not physical threat. The brass wanted that number at 0, so they created a position that didn't exist 6 months ago. Combat Psychology Instructor, Special Warfare Command. And they gave it to her. She pushed through the double doors at exactly 0800 hours. The room went quiet in that specific way rooms do when everyone notices something unexpected. 282 bodies in various states of SEAL training attire turned toward her, some mid-conversation, some mid-stretch, all of them recalibrating what they thought this morning was going to be. Maya didn't smile, didn't wave, just walked to the center of the room where a small platform had been set up with a microphone she wouldn't use and a projector she wouldn't need. Captain Sarah Hendricks stood near the back, arms crossed, face unreadable. She'd hand-picked Maya for this role 3 weeks ago during a closed-door meeting that lasted 4 minutes. "You've defused bombs that would have killed entire platoons," Hendricks had said. "You did it while bleeding, while concussed, while insurgents were shooting at you. The SEALs don't need another instructor who can do push-ups. They need someone who understands what it means to think when your brain is screaming at you to stop thinking." Maya had accepted on the spot. Now, standing in front of nearly 300 men who'd spent their entire careers being told they were the best, she understood what Hendricks hadn't said out loud. "They're going to hate you for this." "Good morning." Her voice carried without strain, clear and level. "I'm Maya Reeves. I'm here to teach you how not to die when the problem isn't bullets. It's your own head." Silence. The kind that's heavier than noise. Then, from somewhere near the left side of the formation, a voice, low enough to sound like a private comment, loud enough to make sure she heard it. "They sent us a kindergarten teacher to explain stress to SEALs?" Laughter rippled through a section of the room. Not everyone, but enough. Maya didn't search for the source. She already knew who it was. Chief Warrant Officer Derek Vaughn. 6'3", 220, 17 years in naval special warfare, and a reputation for breaking new instructors before their first evaluation. He stood with his arms crossed, smirking, flanked by Senior Chief Logan Pierce, a man who looked like he'd been carved from the same block of granite and shared the same philosophy. If you're not one of us, you don't belong here. Captain Hendricks shifted her weight but didn't intervene. This was Maya's test, and they both knew it. Maya let the laughter settle. Then she spoke again, quieter this time, which somehow made it louder. "In Helmand Province, I watched a 19-year-old Marine try to defuse an IED while his squad leader screamed at him to hurry because Taliban fighters were 30 seconds out. He had the training, he had the tools, he had everything he needed except the ability to think through fear." She paused. "He's dead. His squad leader's dead. 4 other Marines are dead because stress doesn't care how strong you are. The room shifted, not into respect, not yet, but into attention. Vaughn wasn't done. "With all due respect, ma'am," the word dripped with sarcasm. "Most of us have been in country. We know what stress looks like." "You know what combat looks like," Maya corrected. "Stress is what happens in the 3 seconds before you decide whether to shoot or wait. It's what happens when your team leader goes down and suddenly you're in command and you've never led anything. It's what happens when you're captured and no one's coming for you." Pierce snorted. "When's the last time you got captured, ma'am?" The question landed like a challenge. Maya looked directly at him. "Kandahar, 18 months ago. 72 hours. The room went dead quiet. Even Vaughn's smirk faltered. "You were taken?" someone asked from the back, younger voice, genuine. "I was bait," Maya said simply. "Part of an experimental SEER program the DoD doesn't advertise. They wanted to see if psychological conditioning could override survival instinct during enhanced interrogation. I volunteered." "Jesus," someone muttered. 8 months later, real insurgents grabbed me during a defusing operation outside Kandahar. They didn't know I'd already been through worse with my own people. Her voice didn't waver. "I killed 2 of them with a broken flashlight and a bootlace. Then I walked 11 kilometers to the nearest forward operating base with a dislocated shoulder." No one laughed now. Vaughn's jaw tightened. He didn't like losing control of the room. "So you're here to tell us war stories?" "I'm here," Maya said, "to make sure you don't end up as one." She moved toward the front of the platform. "This morning we're going to run a demonstration. I need 2 volunteers for a controlled hostile engagement scenario. The setup is simple. You'll simulate an interrogation situation where I'm a captured asset, and you're attempting to extract information using psychological pressure and physical intimidation. All contact will follow established training protocols. The goal is to show how stress affects decision-making under duress." Hands went up across the room. Eager, competitive. Maya pointed to 2 men near the middle. Both dropped their hands. Then Vaughn raised his. "I'll volunteer," he said. Not a question, a declaration. Pierce's hand went up immediately after. "Me too." Captain Hendricks stiffened. Maya saw it in her peripheral vision, but didn't react. "Chief Warrant Officer Vaughn and Senior Chief Pierce," Maya said evenly. "Step forward." They moved like men who'd already won. Confident, theatrical, playing to the crowd. Maya gestured to the open space in front of the platform. "We'll establish the parameters now. This is a stress inoculation drill. You'll attempt to destabilize my psychological state through approved pressure tactics, verbal intimidation, controlled physical contact, environmental manipulation. I'll demonstrate how to maintain cognitive function and tactical awareness while under duress. At any point, if I call protocol stop, you immediately disengage. Understood?" "Understood," Vaughn said, still smiling. Pierce nodded. They circled her slowly, the way predators do when they think the prey doesn't know they're being hunted. The rest of the room pressed closer, forming a loose ring. This wasn't instruction anymore. This was entertainment. Maya stood at the center, hands at her sides, breathing steady. "Begin." Vaughn moved first. "So you think you can teach us something?" "I think you're afraid of what I might teach you," Maya replied calmly. His smile sharpened. "Afraid? Of a woman who plays with wires for a living?" "I don't play," she said. "I make decisions that determine whether people live or die. Every time. No second chances." Pierce stepped closer from behind. "Must be nice having all that time to think. We work in seconds." "So do I. Difference is, when I make the wrong choice, I'm the one who dies."
When you make the wrong choice, your team dies with you.
Vaughn's expression darkened. The smile was gone now.
You've got a mouth on you, he said quietly.
And you've got an ego problem, Maya said. Which one do you think gets people killed faster? That did it. Vaughn stepped into her space, chest puffed, using his size as intimidation. You think you're tough because you survived some training exercise? I think I'm still standing, Maya said, which is more than I can say for the last 3 instructors you ran off this base. Gasps rippled through the room. Someone whispered, "Holy shit." Pierce moved closer. Too close. His shoulder brushed hers. Not accidental. Deliberate. A test. Maya didn't move. You're outside the contact parameters. Am I? Pierce's voice was low, dangerous. Protocol guidelines allow for intimidation positioning, but prohibit sustained physical contact without tactical justification. Vaughn laughed, sharp and bitter. You memorized the manual. Cute. I wrote the section you're violating, Maya said. His face flushed red.
You wrote?
The revised SEER Handbook, Chapter 7, Instructor Conduct During Psychological Resistance Training. My work. My words. You're breaking rules I created. For a moment, Vaughn looked like he might back down. Then Pierce whispered something in his ear. Maya saw the shift, the decision, the exact moment 2 men decided that humiliation was worth more than discipline. Maybe we should test those rules, Vaughn said. I wouldn't recommend it, Maya replied. Why not? Because the same section that defines your limitations also defines my response protocols when those limitations are breached. Pierce smirked. And what's that? Maya's voice dropped, cold and flat. Unrestricted defensive engagement. Big words, Vaughn said. Clear meaning, Maya countered. You cross the line? I stop treating this like training. Vaughn glanced at Pierce. Something passed between them, some shared understanding that they'd gone too far to back down now. That retreat would cost them more than whatever came next. Here's the thing, Vaughn said, stepping even closer. I don't think you know where the line is. Then let me show you, Maya said. He moved fast, faster than she expected for a man his size. His hand shot toward her shoulder, not a grab, but a shove, designed to knock her off balance, make her stumble, prove she couldn't handle real pressure. Maya redirected. Simple, clean. She angled her body, let his force slide past her, and reset her stance. The room leaned in. Pierce came from the left, another shove, harder this time. She absorbed it, shifted her weight, stayed upright. Protocol stop, she said clearly. Neither man stopped. Protocol stop, she repeated, louder. Vaughn grinned. I didn't hear anything. Captain Hendricks stepped forward from the back. Chief Warrant Officer, you were given a direct— We're just testing her limits, ma'am, Pierce interrupted. Isn't that the point of the demonstration? Hendricks hesitated, and in that half-second of hesitation, everything changed. Vaughn and Pierce exchanged a look. Then, simultaneously, they moved. 2 boots, 2 bodies, 2 grown men driving their full weight into a woman half their size. The double kick caught Maya in the ribs and thigh. The impact was immediate, brutal, and designed to hurt. Her body folded. Her spine hit concrete. Her head snapped back. The air left her lungs in a sharp, involuntary gasp. Silence crashed over the room like a physical force. 282 Navy SEALs stood frozen. Vaughn and Pierce stepped back, chests heaving, faces flushed with adrenaline and something uglier. Triumph. Sorry, Vaughn said, not sounding sorry at all. Guess we got carried away. Maya didn't move. She lay there on the concrete, staring up at the ceiling, ribs screaming, leg throbbing, mind perfectly, terrifyingly clear. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Is she okay?" Another voice, "They actually hit her." Captain Hendricks was already moving, shouting for a medic, but Maya's hand moved first. Not to her ribs, not to signal for help. She planted her palm flat against the concrete and pushed. The sound of her glove scraping the floor cut through every whisper, every breath, every heartbeat in that room. She rose slowly. Not because she was hurt, though she was, but because she wanted them to see it. Every inch, every second. The deliberate choice to stand when staying down would have been easier. When she was fully upright, she looked at Vaughn, then at Pierce, then at the entire room. Her voice came out quiet, calm, and absolutely lethal. "You just activated a live combat response." Vaughn's smile died. Pierce took an involuntary step back. Because everyone in that room, from the rawest trainee to the most decorated operator, recognized the tone in her voice. It wasn't anger. It was the sound of someone who'd just stopped playing by the rules. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to detonate. Vaughn's face went through 3 distinct stages in the span of 2 seconds. Confusion, recognition, then something that looked uncomfortably close to fear before his pride stamped it out. "Combat response?" He forced a laugh. "This is a training facility. There's no combat here." "There wasn't," Maya said, "until you made it one." Pierce shifted his weight, suddenly less certain. You were just what?" Maya's voice cut clean through his excuse. "Testing me? Putting me in my place? Showing everyone here that a woman doesn't belong in your world?" She took 1 step forward, not aggressive, just present. "You coordinated a simultaneous assault on an unarmed instructor during a controlled demonstration. That's not training. That's battery." Murmurs rippled through the watching SEALs. Some shifted uncomfortably. Others leaned forward, sensing the moment tipping into something none of them had anticipated. Captain Hendricks had her radio halfway to her mouth, but hadn't pressed the button yet. Her eyes were locked on Maya, calculating. "Battery?" Vaughn scoffed, trying to reclaim the room. "That's a little dramatic. We got rough during a drill. It happens." "Not to instructors," Maya said. "Not in front of witnesses. Not with clear safety protocols in place that you both acknowledged and then violated." She glanced at the crowd, then back at him. "You have one opportunity right now to de-escalate this situation." "Oh yeah?" Pierce's bravado was returning, fueled by the audience. "And what's that?" "Stand down. Apologize. Not to me. I don't need your apology. Apologize to every operator in this room who just watched you prove you can't control yourselves in a controlled environment. Apologize for making them question whether you're the kind of men they'd trust in country when discipline matters more than ego." The silence that followed was suffocating. Vaughn's jaw worked. For a moment, just a fraction of a second, he looked like he might actually consider it. Like some part of his brain was screaming at him that he'd crossed a line and needed to step back before it got worse. Then Pierce ruined it. "We don't apologize to failures," he said. The room inhaled collectively. Maya's expression didn't change. "Then you've made your choice." "What choice?" Vaughn demanded. "You going to report us? File a complaint? Get us a slap on the wrist from JAG?" "No," Maya said simply. "I'm going to give you exactly what you asked for when you hit me. A real response." Vaughn laughed, but it sounded hollow now. "You're going to fight us? Both of us?" "I'm going to defend myself against two aggressors who've already demonstrated hostile intent and inability to follow de-escalation commands." She shifted her stance, subtle, barely perceptible, but anyone with combat training recognized it. Weight distributed, center of gravity lowered, hands loose at her sides. That's what the protocol allows once you violate training parameters with physical force. "This is insane," Pierce said, looking to Captain Hendricks. "Ma'am, you're going to let her—" "You struck her first," Hendricks said flatly. "In front of 282 witnesses. Whatever happens next, you earned." Vaughn's face flushed dark red. "She's half my size." "Then you should have thought about that before you kicked her," Hendricks replied. Somewhere in the crowd, a younger SEAL whispered, "Holy shit, this is really happening." Another voice, "My money's on the instructor." "Are you kidding? She's 5 feet 4 inches. "Yeah, and she's still standing." They sucker punched her and she's still standing. Maya heard it all, but kept her focus on the two men in front of her. "Last chance. Walk away now. Take your reprimand. Keep your careers." Vaughn stepped forward instead. "You know what your problem is? You think because you survived some sandbox deployment that you're one of us. But you're not. You'll never be." "You're right," Maya said. "I'm not one of you. I'm better." He moved then, fast and furious, closing the distance with a tackle attempt that would have worked on anyone who froze. But Maya didn't freeze. She angled left just enough that his momentum carried him past her centerline, and as his arms grasped for contact that wasn't there, she stepped into his path, not away from him, into him, and drove her shoulder into his extended elbow joint. The crack was audible. Vaughn screamed, not a yell, a scream, as his elbow hyperextended backward at an angle elbows aren't designed to bend. He crumpled immediately, his other hand flying to the ruined joint, his face sheet white. The crowd erupted in gasps and shouts. Pierce froze for half a second, staring at Vaughn writhing on the ground. That half second cost him everything. He came at Maya in a blind rage, no technique, just raw aggression. He was bigger, stronger, and angrier than Vaughn, which made him easier to read. Maya saw the rear grab attempt coming before he'd fully committed to it. As his arms wrapped around her from behind, attempting a choke, she dropped her full weight straight down, not fighting the hold, but collapsing through it. Pierce stumbled forward with her sudden dead weight, off balance, and Maya rotated through his loosened grip like water through fingers. She came up behind him now, and before he could reset, she drove her heel into the back of his knee. Not the front, the back. The sickening snap was different from Vaughn's break. Deeper, wetter. The sound of structural failure. Pierce's leg buckled backward, the knee bending in a direction that made several SEALs look away. He went down hard, and this time the scream was immediate, high-pitched and raw. 7 seconds, 2 men, 2 joints destroyed. Maya stepped back, breathing hard but controlled, and the entire compound went silent, except for the sounds of 2 grown men sobbing in pain on the concrete. She didn't gloat, didn't smile, just stood there, hands at her sides, and said quietly, "Someone call medical." No one moved. They were all frozen, staring at her like they'd just watched physics rewrite itself. Captain Hendricks was the first to break the spell. "Corman, now!" 2 medics sprinted forward, dropping beside Vaughn and Pierce with trauma kits already opening. One of the senior SEALs, Lieutenant Commander James Kessler, a man with 8 tours and a face like weathered granite, stepped forward from the crowd. He looked at Maya, then at the 2 broken men, then back at Maya. "Where'd you learn that?" he asked quietly. "Kandahar," Maya said. The real version, not the training one. His eyes narrowed. You said you were taken. I was. And you said you killed 2 insurgents with a flashlight and a bootlace. I did. How? Maya met his gaze dead on. I'm EOD. I don't just know how things break. I know exactly where to apply pressure to make them break fastest. Kessler absorbed that, then nodded once, slow and respectful. Noted. The medics were working frantically now. Vaughn's elbow was already swelling to twice its normal size, the joint visibly dislocated and fractured. Pierce's knee had bent so far backward that his lower leg sat at a grotesque angle, and his foot was already turning a concerning shade of gray. "We need an ambulance!" one of the corpsmen shouted. "Both of them, now!" "Already called!" someone yelled back. Maya watched them work, her face unreadable. Then she turned to Captain Hendricks. "I need to file an incident report." "You need to do more than that," Hendricks said quietly, stepping closer. "You just broke 2 senior operators in front of half the command. There's going to be an investigation." "I know. They're going to ask if it was necessary." "It was. They're going to ask if you could have used less force." "I used the minimum required to neutralize 2 active threats who'd already demonstrated intent and capability to cause serious injury." Maya's voice was steady, clinical. "They coordinated an assault. I responded with controlled defensive techniques designed to incapacitate without killing. That's textbook protocol." Hendricks studied her for a long moment. "You're not worried." "Should I be?" "Most people who just destroyed 2 men's careers would be at least a little concerned about theirs." "My career," Maya said quietly, "survived 72 hours of enhanced interrogation that made waterboarding look gentle. It survived watching Marines die because they couldn't think past their fear. It survived being buried alive for 6 hours after an IED collapsed a building on top of me." She paused. 2 men with broken egos and broken joints? That's just Tuesday. Somewhere behind them, Vaughn was being loaded onto a stretcher, still moaning. Pierce had gone quiet, the bad kind of quiet that meant shock was setting in. "Ma'am?" One of the younger SEALs approached hesitantly, a kid who couldn't have been more than 22. "Can I ask you something?" Maya nodded. "Did you hold back?" The question caught her off guard. "What?" "Just now, when you broke them. Did you hold back? Because it looked like you could have done worse." Maya considered the question seriously. "I could have collapsed Vaughn's trachea when he came at me. I could have shattered Pierce's orbital bone when he grabbed me from behind. I could have ended this in 3 seconds instead of 7. So yes, I held back." The kid went pale. "Jesus." "That's the difference between defensive response and combat execution," Maya said. "In combat, I wouldn't have given them time to stand down. I wouldn't have given them choices. I would have treated them as threats to be eliminated, not trained operators who made a catastrophically bad decision." She looked at the crowd, all of them listening now, all of them recalculating everything they thought they knew. "They're alive because I chose restraint. They're injured because they chose violence. Those are facts, not opinions." Kessler stepped forward again. "The investigation's going to want witness statements." "Then they'll get them," Maya said. "From all of us," he clarified, gesturing to the crowd. "We all saw what happened. We all heard you give them multiple opportunities to stop. We all watched them ignore you." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled SEALs. One of them, a broad-shouldered operator with a shaved head and scar tissue on his knuckles, spoke up. "They've been pulling this shit for years, running off instructors, making people quit, acting like they own this place because they've been here longer than anyone else." "Someone should have stopped them a long time ago," another added. Someone just did, Kessler said, looking at Maya. The ambulance sirens cut through the compound, growing louder as they approached. Within minutes, paramedics were loading both men, Vaughn conscious but pale, Pierce sedated because his pain levels had spiked beyond manageable. Captain Hendricks pulled Maya aside as the ambulances departed. Base security's going to want to talk to you, probably within the hour. I understand. NCIS will likely get involved. I expected that. Maya, Hendricks' voice dropped lower. What happened in Kandahar? The real story, not the sanitized version in your file. Maya was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was different. Not harder, but older somehow. They took me during a defusing operation. 4 insurgents. They thought I was valuable because I'm EOD. Thought I knew things about our bomb detection tech. What they didn't know was that 8 months earlier I'd volunteered for an experimental SEER program. What kind of program? The kind where your own people break you to see if you can be put back together. Maya's eyes were distant now. 72 hours. They used every technique the enemy might use. Stress positions, sensory deprivation, mock executions, psychological manipulation designed to fracture identity and compliance. They wanted to know if conditioning could override the breaking point. And could it? I didn't break, Maya said simply. So when the real insurgents tried the same tactics, it was just familiar, expected. I'd already survived worse from people who were actually trying to help me prepare. These guys were amateurs by comparison. The report said you killed 2 of them. They made a mistake. They left me alone with a broken flashlight and didn't check my boots thoroughly. I used the flashlight casing to create a pressure point strike against the guard's temple, knocked him unconscious, used his bootlaces to strangle the second one when he came to check on his partner. The other 2 ran. She paused. I didn't chase them. I just walked. 11 kilometers with a dislocated shoulder. I've walked farther with worse, Maya said. The shoulder wasn't the hard part. The hard part was convincing myself it was over, that I could stop fighting. Hendricks absorbed that in silence. Then, the brass is going to ask if you're stable, if what you did today was trauma response versus tactical decision-making. It was both, Maya said honestly. I recognized the threat pattern. I'd seen it before. Men who think dominance equals strength, who mistake cruelty for discipline. In Kandahar, showing weakness got people killed. Here, it would have destroyed every bit of credibility I need to do this job. So I didn't show weakness. I showed capability. You showed more than that, Hendricks said quietly. You showed 282 men that underestimating you is a terminal mistake. The crowd was dispersing now, slowly, reluctantly, but every person who walked past Maya did so with a different energy than when they'd arrived. Some nodded respectfully. Others wouldn't meet her eyes, not from disrespect, but from something closer to awe. One SEAL, older, with gray at his temples and ribbons on his chest that spoke of decades in service, stopped directly in front of her. Ma'am, I've been doing this for 23 years. I've seen a lot of fights, a lot of demonstrations, a lot of people who talk tough and fold when it matters. He extended his hand. That was the most disciplined use of force I've ever witnessed. Thank you for not letting them make you small. Maya shook his hand. Thank you for staying to watch. He smiled grimly. Wouldn't have missed it for the world. As he walked away, Maya felt the adrenaline starting to fade, replaced by the sharp ache in her ribs where Vaughn's boot had connected. Her thigh throbbed. Her shoulder, the one that had never fully healed from Kandahar, burned with old pain awakened. But she didn't sit down, didn't show it. Because 282 sets of eyes were still on her, even as they filed out. And the first lesson of combat psychology was simple. What they see you do matters more than what you feel while doing it. Captain Hendricks checked her watch. Security will be here in 20 minutes. You should prepare your statement. It's already prepared, Maya said. I've been composing it since the moment they kicked me. Hendricks almost smiled. Of course you have. Captain? Yes? What happens if they rule against me? If they decide I used excessive force? Hendricks looked at her steadily.
Then we'll fight it, because excessive force is shooting an unarmed man. What you did was barely sufficient force against two armed.
They weren't armed! They were armed with training, rank, size, and intent, Hendricks corrected. That's enough. And more importantly, you gave them multiple opportunities to de-escalate. They chose escalation. That's on them, not you. Maya nodded slowly. But Maya, Hendricks added, if this does go sideways, if they try to make an example out of you to appease someone's ego higher up the chain, you need to know something. What's that? You're not alone in this. Every person who watched what happened today, they're going to remember it. And they're going to remember that you didn't start it. You finished it. The words settled over Maya like armor. And somewhere in the distance, sirens faded into silence. The interrogation room smelled like stale coffee and bureaucratic anxiety. Maya had been sitting in the metal chair for 47 minutes before anyone walked through the door, and she'd spent every second of those 47 minutes doing exactly what she'd been trained to do, staying present, staying calm, and preparing for the fight that didn't involve fists. The door opened without warning. Two men in civilian clothes entered first. Naval Criminal Investigative Service, identified by the badges they flipped open with practiced efficiency. Behind them came a woman in navy dress blues with silver oak leaves on her collar and a legal pad tucked under her arm. Petty Officer Reeves, the woman said, taking the seat directly across from Maya. I'm Lieutenant Commander Patricia Walsh, JAG. These are Special Agents Morrison and Chen from NCIS. We need to ask you some questions about this morning's incident. I understand, Maya said. Walsh opened her legal pad, clicked her pen. Before we begin, you have the right to legal counsel.
Do you wish to have an attorney present?
No. Morrison raised an eyebrow. You're certain? Given the severity of the injuries involved, I'm certain, Maya interrupted. I don't need a lawyer to tell the truth. Chen leaned forward slightly. Walk us through what happened. Start from when you entered the briefing hall. Maya did. She recounted every detail with the precision of someone who'd spent years documenting IED structures for post-blast analysis. She didn't embellish, didn't editorialize, just facts. What was said, what was done, what protocols were violated, and when. When she reached the part about the double kick, Walsh's pen stopped moving. You're saying they struck you simultaneously? With full force? Yes. And you didn't initiate any physical contact before that moment? Correct. I gave multiple verbal warnings. I announced the protocol stop command twice. Both men ignored it. Morrison exchanged a glance with Chen.
How did you know they were going to attack?
I didn't know, Maya said. I recognized the pattern. Two aggressors positioning themselves for maximum impact, coordinating non-verbally, escalating past the point where training justifies the contact level. It's the same pattern I saw in Kandahar.
Walsh looked up sharply. Kandahar.
When I was taken, Maya said simply. The room went very quiet. Chen pulled out a tablet, scrolled through something. Your service record shows you were embedded with a forward recon unit for 7 months. It lists you as EOD specialist with combat support clearance. There's nothing here about being taken. That's because it's classified, Maya said. Classified by whom? Department of Defense,
Special Activities Division. The program I was part of doesn't appear in standard service records. Morrison's expression hardened. What program? Maya met his eyes. SEER Level C+.
Enhanced Psychological Resistance Training for Operators at Extreme Risk of Capture and Exploitation. I was one of 12 volunteers. 4 washed out in the first week. 2 more had psychological breaks during the advanced phase. 6 of us completed the full program. Walsh wrote something down, underlined it twice. And this training involved what exactly? Everything the enemy might use to break you, Maya said quietly. Stress positions, sensory deprivation, mock executions, psychological manipulation designed to fracture identity and manufacture compliance. They put you through 72 hours of hell to see if you could survive it without breaking operational security or abandoning mission focus. And did you? Chen asked. I'm sitting here, Maya said. So yes. Morrison wasn't satisfied. That doesn't explain how you went from EOD specialist to combat instructor in under a year. It does if you read the classified portion of my file, Maya replied. 8 months after completing SEER, real insurgents grabbed me during a defusing operation outside Kandahar. They used the same techniques my trainers used, same stress positions, same psychological tactics, same threats. What happened? I killed 2 of them and escaped. The silence was absolute. Walsh's voice was carefully controlled when she spoke. Your official record lists no combat kills. My official record, Maya said, lists me as having been wounded in an IED blast and medevaced to Landstuhl. That's the cover story. The real story is classified at a level that requires executive clearance to access. Chen stood up abruptly. We need to verify this. Call Colonel Richard Vance at DoD Special Activities, Maya said. Authorization code Victor 7 Romeo 9 Tango. He'll confirm. Morrison pulled out his phone and left the room. Chen followed. Walsh stayed, studying Maya with new intensity. Why didn't you mention this in your initial statement? Because it wasn't relevant until you started questioning whether my response was justified, Maya said. Now it's relevant. You could have led with it. I could have, Maya agreed. But I wanted you to evaluate what happened today based on what happened today, not based on who I am or what I've survived. 2 men assaulted me. I defended myself. Those are facts. My background doesn't change them. Walsh tapped her pen against the legal pad. It changes context. Context doesn't change assault, Maya said. If anything, my training makes it worse for them. They attacked someone with documented advanced defensive capabilities and expected what? That I'd just take it? That I'd lie there and prove their point that I don't belong? Is that what this was about for you? Walsh asked quietly. Proving you belong? No, Maya said. It was about surviving. Belonging is a privilege. Survival is a requirement. The door opened. Morrison returned, his face unreadable. He nodded once to Walsh. Walsh closed her legal pad. Your story checks out. Colonel Vance confirmed your service record and authorized limited disclosure for this investigation. Limited disclosure? Maya asked. He told us what we needed to know and nothing more, Morrison said. But it's enough. You're telling the truth about Kandahar, about the SEER program, about all of it. I know, Maya said. Chen sat back down, tablet in hand. We've also been reviewing witness statements. We've interviewed 32 personnel who were present during the incident. Their accounts are consistent with yours. Walsh opened her pad again. Multiple witnesses confirmed Chief Warrant Officer Vaughn and Senior Chief Pierce initiated verbal harassment prior to the physical altercation.
Multiple witnesses confirm you issued clear protocol stop commands that were ignored. Multiple witnesses confirm the coordinated assault.
Then we're done here, Maya said. Not quite, Morrison said.
We still need to address the level of force you used in response. Maya's jaw tightened fractionally. I used the minimum force necessary to neutralize 2 active threats. You broke their joints, Chen said flatly. I redirected their momentum and applied joint locks that resulted in structural failure when they resisted, Maya corrected. That's not excessive force. That's physics. Walsh leaned back. Walk me through your decision-making in those 7 seconds. Vaughn came at me with a tackle attempt. Tackling someone my size with his mass creates significant injury risk. Head trauma, spinal damage, internal bleeding. I had to stop his forward momentum immediately. The fastest way to do that without using lethal force was to compromise his primary attack limb. His elbow extended past safe range when he lunged. I applied pressure to the joint. It failed. And Pierce? Pierce attempted a rear choke.
Rear chokes can render someone unconscious in under 10 seconds. Once unconscious, I'd have been completely vulnerable to continued assault. I couldn't allow the hold to establish. I dropped through it, repositioned, and neutralized his ability to maintain balance by targeting his planted leg. His knee failed because he put his full weight on a joint locked in hyperextension. Morrison was writing rapidly. So you're saying their injuries were self-inflicted? I'm saying their injuries were the predictable outcome of applying force against trained resistance, Maya said. If you punch a brick wall, the wall doesn't break your hand. Your hand breaks because you hit something that doesn't yield. I didn't yield. Chen almost smiled. Almost. Walsh checked her watch. We're going to need a few hours to compile the full report and review it with command. You'll be placed on administrative leave pending the investigation's conclusion. How long? 72 hours minimum. Could be longer depending on what command decides.
Maya nodded.
Am I confined to base?
No, but don't leave the county. And don't discuss this case with anyone outside official channels.
Understood.
Morrison stood. One more question. If you could go back to this morning, would you do anything differently? Maya considered that seriously.
Yes.
What?
I would have requested different volunteers.
The 3 investigators exchanged glances.
That's it? Chen asked. Not the force you used, not the techniques, just the volunteers? The techniques were appropriate for the threat, Maya said. The force was proportional to the assault. The only variable I could have controlled was who stepped into that ring. If I'd chosen differently, none of this would have happened.
Walsh closed her pad with finality. For what it's worth, Petty Officer Reeves, I've reviewed a lot of use of force cases.
Most people in your position would have done one of 2 things. Frozen and gotten hurt worse, or overreacted and done permanent damage. You did neither. That takes extraordinary discipline.
Or extraordinary practice, Maya said quietly. Walsh's expression softened slightly. I read between the lines of what Colonel Vance told us. What they put you through in that program, that wasn't training. That was trauma.
It was both,
Maya said.
And it kept me alive.
At what cost? Maya didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was different. Not harder, but hollower.
The cost of survival is always paid later. Usually when you think you're safe.
Walsh nodded slowly, understanding something unspoken. Then she stood.
You're free to go. We'll contact you when we have a decision.
Maya left the building and walked into sunlight that felt too bright after the fluorescent interrogation room. Her ribs ached with every breath.
Her thigh had stiffened into a deep bruise she could feel through her uniform. But she was walking. They weren't. Captain Hendricks was waiting by the parking lot, leaning against her vehicle with her arms crossed. "How'd it go?" she asked as Maya approached. "They believe me." "Of course they believe you. 282 witnesses make it pretty hard to dispute the facts." Hendricks pushed off the car. "The real question is what they're going to do about it." Walsh said 72 hours minimum. Walsh is conservative. My guess is command already knows what they're going to do. They're just running the clock to make it look like proper procedure. Maya stopped walking. "You think they've already decided?" "I think the moment Colonel Vance confirmed your background, this case stopped being about whether you were justified and started being about whether the Navy wants to punish someone for defending herself, or punish 2 operators who assaulted an instructor in front of hundreds of witnesses." Hendricks met her eyes. "That's not a hard choice." "Then why the delay?" "Because Vaughn and Pierce have friends, people who've served with them for years, people who don't like the idea that a woman half their size put them both in the hospital. Those people are going to make noise. Command needs time to manage that noise before they issue a verdict." Maya absorbed that. "What kind of noise?" "The kind that says you got lucky, that it was a fluke, that any of them could do the same if they'd been in your position." Hendricks smiled grimly. "They're wrong, but they're going to say it anyway." "Let them," Maya said. "You sure about that? Because once this gets out, and it will get out, you're going to have a target on your back. Every operator with something to prove is going to look at you and think maybe they can succeed where Vaughn and Pierce failed." "Then they'll fail too," Maya said simply. Hendricks studied her for a long moment. "You really believe that?" "I know that. There's a difference between confidence and delusion. Confidence is understanding your capabilities. I understand mine." "And if someone comes at you again?" "Then I'll respond again. Same as today. Appropriate force, proportional to threat, documented with witnesses." Maya's voice was flat, factual. "I'm not going to make myself smaller so other people feel bigger. That's not survival. That's surrender." Hendricks nodded slowly. "Good. Because you're going to need that mindset for what comes next." Maya's eyes narrowed. "What comes next?" "The formal hearing. It's scheduled for Monday. Closed session, but all witness testimony will be entered into the record." Both Vaughn and Pierce are filing countercomplaints, claiming you used excessive force and created an unsafe training environment. "Of course they are," Maya said. "They're also claiming you have a history of violent behavior and should never have been cleared for instructor duty." Maya went very still. "They're lying." "I know, but they're desperate. Men like that don't know how to lose, so they rewrite the story until they're the victims." Hendricks pulled out a folder from her car. "Which is why you need to see this." Maya took the folder. Inside were printed statements, witness testimonies from the SEALs who'd been present that morning. The first one was from Lieutenant Commander Kessler. "Petty Officer Reeves demonstrated textbook defensive response to coordinated assault. She issued multiple warnings. She attempted de-escalation. She used minimum necessary force when all other options were exhausted. If anything, she showed restraint I wouldn't have." The second was from a younger SEAL whose name Maya didn't recognize. "I've been in this program for 6 months. I've seen Vaughn and Pierce run off 3 instructors before her. They do it every time someone challenges them. They did it to her because she's a woman, and they thought she'd be easy. They were wrong." The third made Maya's throat tighten. "I served with Maya Reeves in Helmand Province. I watched her defuse an IED with her hands shaking so bad I didn't think she'd make it. She did. She always does. What happened today wasn't violence. It was survival. Anyone who says different wasn't paying attention." There were 28 more. Every single one backed her story.
Every single one contradicted Vaughn and Pierce's narrative. Maya looked up at Hendricks.
Why are you showing me these?
Because on Monday, you're going to walk into that hearing and face a panel of senior officers who've never met you. Some of them will be skeptical. Some of them will be biased. Some of them will want to make an example out of you to prove the Navy doesn't tolerate violence, even justified violence. Hendricks pointed to the folder. Those statements are your armor. Those men watched what happened, and they're willing to go on record saying you did the right thing. Don't forget that when it feels like you're fighting alone. Maya's hands tightened on the folder. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when this is over and you still have a career. And if I don't? Hendricks smiled, sharp and fierce. Then we'll burn down the whole goddamn system that tried to punish you for surviving. But one way or another, Maya Reeves, you're not going to be erased by two men who couldn't handle being beaten by someone they underestimated. Maya nodded once.
Then she turned and walked toward her quarters, clutching the folder like a lifeline.
Behind her, Hendricks watched until she disappeared from sight, then pulled out her phone and made a call. Colonel Vance, it's Captain Hendricks. We need to talk about Monday's hearing. Because if they try to crucify her for this, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of program you put her through before Kandahar, and how that program is directly responsible for saving her life today. There was a pause. Then Vance's voice came through, cold and clipped. Are you threatening me, Captain? No, sir, Hendricks said calmly. I'm promising you. Maya Reeves survived your program. She survived Kandahar. She survived this morning. She's going to survive Monday, too, with or without your help. The question is whether you're going to stand up for what you created, or hide behind bureaucracy while they tear her apart for doing exactly what you trained her to do. Another pause.
Longer this time.
I'll be at the hearing, Vance said finally. Good, Hendricks replied. Because she's going to need someone in that room who understands the difference between violence and victory. She hung up and looked back toward the empty path where Maya had been. You're not alone in this, she said quietly to no one. Not anymore. Monday morning arrived with the kind of silence that precedes explosions. Maya stood outside Conference Room 7 at 07:45 hours, exactly 15 minutes early, wearing her dress blues and carrying nothing but the folder Hendricks had given her. Her ribs still ached. The bruise on her thigh had deepened to purple-black, but she'd walked the 3 miles from her quarters to the administrative building without limping once, because showing pain now would be interpreted as weakness, and weakness was something she couldn't afford. The door opened. Lieutenant Commander Walsh stepped out, her expression carefully neutral.
They're ready for you, she said.
Maya walked in and immediately catalogued the room. 5 officers sat behind a long table, 3 men, 2 women, ranks ranging from commander to rear admiral. The rear admiral sat in the center, a woman in her late 50s with iron gray hair and eyes that had seen enough combat to recognize it in others. Captain Hendricks sat to the left against the wall, not part of the panel, but present as Maya's commanding officer. And in the back corner, almost hidden in shadow, sat a man in civilian clothes with a face Maya recognized instantly. Colonel Richard Vance, the man who'd designed the program that broke her and rebuilt her in Kandahar. Their eyes met for half a second. He nodded once, barely perceptible. Maya sat in the single chair facing the panel and waited. The rear admiral, her nameplate read Barnes, opened a thick file. Petty Officer First Class Maya Reeves.
You're here to address formal complaints filed by Chief Warrant Officer Derek Vaughn and Senior Chief Logan Pierce regarding an incident that occurred last Friday during a training demonstration.
Both men claim you used excessive force, resulting in severe injuries. They're requesting disciplinary action, including discharge from instructor duties and formal reprimand. Do you understand the charges? Yes, ma'am. Before we proceed, I want to be clear about something. Barnes's voice was sharp, precise. This is not a court-martial. This is an administrative review to determine whether your actions violated Navy regulations regarding use of force in training environments. You're entitled to counsel, but you've waived that right, correct? Correct. Then let's begin. Barnes looked down at her notes. In your statement, you claim Chief Warrant Officer Vaughn and Senior Chief Pierce initiated physical contact by delivering simultaneous kicks to your torso and leg. Is that accurate? Yes, ma'am. And you responded by breaking Chief Warrant Officer Vaughn's elbow and Senior Chief Pierce's knee. I responded by defending myself against two assailants who'd ignored multiple protocol stop commands and demonstrated clear intent to cause injury. Maya corrected calmly. The injuries they sustained were the result of their own momentum applied against controlled defensive techniques. One of the male commanders, Mitchell, according to his nameplate, leaned forward. That sounds like semantics, petty officer. It's physics, sir, Maya replied. If you charge at someone who knows how to redirect force, you become a weapon against yourself. Barnes consulted her file again. We have 32 witness statements. All of them corroborate your version of events. All of them confirm you issued verbal warnings that were ignored. Several specifically note that the initial assault appeared coordinated and deliberate. Because it was, ma'am. The second female officer, Commander Ross, spoke up. These are serious allegations. You're claiming two senior operators with spotless service records conspired to assault you during a training exercise. Their service records aren't spotless, Maya said quietly. They've been involved in disciplinary issues with 3 previous instructors, all of whom resigned or requested transfer within 6 months of assignment. Ross's eyebrows lifted. How do you know that? Because I read their files before accepting this position. I wanted to know who I'd be working with. Mitchell frowned. And knowing they had a history of conflict, you still engaged them for your demonstration? They volunteered, sir. I accepted because refusing would have signaled I was afraid of them. Fear undermines authority. So does breaking people's bones, Mitchell shot back. Maya didn't flinch. So does allowing assault to go unanswered, sir. The room temperature seemed to drop 5 degrees. Barnes raised a hand, silencing any response from Mitchell. Let's focus on the moment of contact. Walk me through your decision-making. When they kicked you, what were your options? Maya took a breath. I had 3 options. Option 1, stay down, accept the injury, file a complaint after the fact. Option 2, attempt to de-escalate verbally while vulnerable on the ground. Option 3, neutralize the threat immediately before they could follow up with additional strikes. You chose option 3. Yes, ma'am. Options 1 and 2 both assumed they would stop. They'd already demonstrated they wouldn't. Staying down meant giving them an opportunity to cause serious injury while I was defenseless. Trying to talk while prone meant the same outcome. The only viable option was to remove their ability to continue the assault. Ross leaned back, arms crossed. By breaking their joints. By applying joint locks that failed under resistance, Maya said again. I didn't strike them. I didn't punch, kick, or use impact force. I redirected their attacks and used leverage against compromised positions. The breaks occurred because they continued to resist instead of yielding. That seems convenient, Mitchell said. It's documented, sir. Maya pulled a single sheet from her folder. I submitted this to NCIS during my initial interview. It's a biomechanical analysis of both engagements, showing the precise angles, force vectors, and decision points. The math supports my statement. Barnes took the sheet, scanned it, then passed it down the line. Each panel member reviewed it in silence. The third male officer, who hadn't spoken yet, Commander Hayes, cleared his throat. "This level of detail suggests you've done this before."
"I've defended myself before, yes, sir."
"Under what circumstances?"
Maya glanced toward the back of the room where Colonel Vance sat motionless. He gave the slightest nod. She looked back at Hayes. "I was captured by insurgents in Kandahar 18 months ago, during a defusing operation. They attempted enhanced interrogation techniques to extract operational intelligence. I resisted. When they escalated to physical assault, I defended myself, using the same principles I applied Friday. 2 insurgents died. I escaped." The silence that followed was absolute. Barnes set down her pen very deliberately.
That's not in your service record.
"It's classified, ma'am. Authorization code Victor 7 Romeo 9 Tango. Colonel Richard Vance can verify." Every head in the room turned toward the back corner. Vance stood slowly and walked to the table. He didn't introduce himself. Didn't need to. "Rear Admiral Barnes, members of the panel. I'm Colonel Richard Vance, Department of Defense Special Activities Division. Petty Officer Reeves is telling the truth. What happened in Kandahar is documented in classified files that require executive clearance to access.
What I can tell you is this. Maya Reeves volunteered for an experimental program designed to prepare operators for extreme capture scenarios. She completed training that broke half the candidates psychologically. When real insurgents grabbed her 8 months later, she used that training to survive and escape. She killed 2 hostile combatants using improvised weapons and walked 11 kilometers to safety with a dislocated shoulder. Ross stared at him.
"And we're only hearing about this now?"
"You're hearing about it because it's relevant to this hearing," Vance said flatly. Petty Officer Reeves didn't mention it earlier because she didn't want her background to influence the investigation. She wanted the facts to stand alone. They do. 32 witnesses confirm she was assaulted. 32 witnesses confirm she defended herself. Her background simply explains why her defensive response was so effective. Mitchell shook his head.
This is unbelievable.
"It's documented," Vance repeated. "Would you like me to have the classified files delivered to this panel under secure conditions?" Barnes held up a hand. "That won't be necessary, Colonel. Your testimony is sufficient for our purposes." She looked at Maya.
Why didn't you include this in your initial statement? Because it wasn't relevant to what happened, ma'am, Maya said. 2 men assaulted me. I defended myself. My training explained how I could defend myself effectively, but it didn't change the fact that they initiated force, and I responded appropriately.
Hayes studied her. "You don't think your combat experience makes you more dangerous than a standard instructor?"
"I think it makes me more capable, sir. Dangerous implies intent to harm. I don't have that intent. But I do have the capability to protect myself when attacked. There's a difference."
"A difference that put 2 men in the hospital," Mitchell said.
"A difference that kept me from being the one in the hospital," Maya countered. "Or worse." Barnes tapped her file. "Let's address the counter-complaints. Chief Warrant Officer Vaughn claims you created an unsafe training environment by provoking them into physical confrontation. He states you made inflammatory remarks designed to elicit a violent response." Maya's jaw tightened.
"I challenged their assumption that I couldn't teach them anything. That's not provocation. That's instruction."
"He specifically cites you saying, 'I'm better than you.'"
"I said I'm better at surviving capture and interrogation because I've done it, and they haven't," Maya corrected. "That's a factual statement, not an insult."
Ross consulted her own notes. "Senior Chief Pierce claims you demonstrated hostile body language and aggressive positioning prior to the assault."
I demonstrated defensive positioning after they violated contact parameters, Maya said. That's not aggression.
That's preparation. Preparation for what? For exactly what happened, Maya said simply. They'd already shown they wouldn't follow protocol. They'd already made physical contact outside approved guidelines. I recognized the threat pattern and prepared to respond. That's not creating danger. That's recognizing it. Barnes closed her file. Let me be direct, Petty Officer Reeves. What happened Friday looks bad for the Navy. 2 senior operators hospitalized by a female instructor in front of hundreds of witnesses. The optics alone are complicated. Add in the fact that you're EOD, not combat arms, and it raises questions about how someone in your position acquired the skills to do what you did. I acquired them through voluntary participation in a DoD training program, Maya said. A program designed specifically to prepare people for worst-case scenarios. It worked. Too well, some might argue, Mitchell muttered. Maya turned to face him directly. Sir, with respect, would we be having this conversation if I were a man? If a male instructor had been attacked by 2 subordinates and defended himself effectively, would we be questioning whether he used too much skill? Or would we be asking why the attackers thought they could get away with assault? The room went silent. Mitchell's face reddened. It's exactly what's happening, Maya interrupted. I'm being investigated because I won, because I didn't lose, because 2 men who thought they could intimidate me based on size and gender discovered they were wrong. And now the institution has to decide whether to punish them for assaulting me or punish me for refusing to be a victim. Barnes raised both hands. Petty Officer Reeves, I'm not finished, ma'am. Maya's voice was steady but steel-edged now. I've spent my entire career proving I belong. Proving I can defuse bombs as well as any man. Proving I can handle combat stress. Proving I can survive capture. And now I have to prove I'm allowed to defend myself when attacked? How many times do I have to prove I deserve to exist in this uniform before the answer is just, yes? The silence that followed was suffocating. Then Colonel Vance spoke from the back of the room. She's right. Every head turned. Vance stepped forward again. I've trained hundreds of operators over 23 years, men and women. SEALs, Rangers, Delta, Marine Recon. Maya Reeves is in the top 5% of anyone I've ever worked with in terms of stress resilience and tactical adaptability. What she did Friday wasn't excessive. It was exemplary. She gave multiple warnings. She attempted verbal de-escalation. She used minimum necessary force when all other options failed. If we punish her for that, we're sending a message to every woman in uniform that defending yourself makes you a problem instead of a survivor. Barnes met his gaze. You're willing to go on record with that, Colonel? I already did, ma'am. It's in my written testimony, which should be in your file. Barnes flipped through several pages, found it, and read in silence for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she looked up. The panel needs to deliberate. Petty Officer Reeves, please step outside. We'll call you back when we've reached a decision. Maya stood, saluted, and walked out of the room on legs that felt steadier than they had any right to be. The door closed behind her. She stood in the empty hallway for 30 seconds before her hands started shaking. Not from fear, from the sheer force of holding everything together for so long. The door opened again. Captain Hendricks stepped out. That was the gutsiest thing I've ever seen, she said quietly. I couldn't let them rewrite it, Maya said. Couldn't let them make it about me being the problem, when they were the ones who created it. You called out a panel of senior officers on gender bias. I called out the truth, Maya said. If they punish me for that, at least everyone will know why. Hendricks smiled grimly. They're not going to punish you. You don't know that. I do, because Colonel Vance just threatened to declassify the entire SEER C+ program,
and release it to congressional oversight if they rule against you. That program cost $47 million and involved techniques that would make headlines for all the wrong reasons. They're not going to risk that exposure. Maya's eyes widened. He said that? He didn't have to. Barnes knows who he is and what he represents. The threat was implicit. Hendricks leaned against the wall. You have powerful allies, Maya. People who see what you are and want to protect it. Don't forget that. Before Maya could respond, the door opened again. Lieutenant Commander Walsh stepped out. They're ready. Maya walked back into the room.
The panel's expressions were unreadable.
Barnes stood. Petty Officer First Class Maya Reeves. This panel has reviewed all testimony, evidence, and statements related to the incident of last Friday. We've also considered the context provided by Colonel Vance regarding your specialized training and prior service. Maya stood at attention, barely breathing. Our findings are as follows, Barnes continued. Chief Warrant Officer Derek Vaughn and Senior Chief Logan Pierce violated multiple training protocols, including unauthorized escalation of force, failure to respond to safety commands, and coordinated assault on an instructor. Their actions constitute gross misconduct unbecoming of their ranks and positions. Maya's heart hammered. Your response, while resulting in significant injury, was consistent with approved defensive engagement protocols for instructors under direct physical threat.
You demonstrated appropriate restraint, issued clear warnings, and used controlled techniques rather than lethal force, despite having the capability to do so. Barnes paused, her gaze meeting Maya's. No disciplinary action will be taken against you. You are cleared of all charges. Furthermore, Chief Warrant Officer Vaughn and Senior Chief Pierce are hereby relieved of all instructor duties and will face separate disciplinary proceedings for their conduct. The room spun. Barnes wasn't finished. Additionally, based on testimony regarding your specialized training and demonstrated capability, this panel recommends you be promoted to lead instructor for the newly expanded Combat Psychology and Stress Resilience Program, with authority to develop curriculum across all SEAL training pipelines. Maya's knees almost buckled. Do you accept this assignment, Petty Officer Reeves? Yes, ma'am, Maya said, voice barely above a whisper. Then this hearing is concluded. Dismissed. Maya saluted, turned, and walked out of the room on autopilot. The hallway was still empty. She made it 3 steps before her legs gave out, and she sat down hard against the wall, folder clutched to her chest. Captain Hendricks found her there 2 minutes later. You okay? She asked. Maya looked up, eyes bright. They believed me. Of course they did. You told the truth. The truth doesn't always win, Maya said. No, Hendricks agreed, sitting down beside her. But today it did. And tomorrow, you're going to teach an entire generation of operators that strength isn't about size or gender. It's about knowing who you are and refusing to be anything less. Maya nodded, throat too tight to speak. Somewhere down the hall, Colonel Vance emerged from the conference room and walked past without stopping. But as he passed, he said just loud enough for her to hear, You earned this. Don't let anyone tell you different. Then he was gone, and Maya Reeves sat in that hallway, bruised and exhausted and vindicated, and finally let herself believe what she'd been fighting to prove since the moment those boots hit her ribs. She belonged here. And nothing, no assault, no investigation, no doubt, could take that away anymore. 2 weeks later, Maya stood outside the same briefing hall where everything had changed, staring at the door like it might bite her. Inside waited 45 SEAL candidates for her first official session as lead instructor, Combat Psychology and Stress Resilience. Her new rank insignia felt heavier than it should. The bruises had faded to yellow-green shadows,
but the memory of impact remained sharp. Captain Hendricks appeared beside her without warning. "You going in, or are you planning to stand out here until they come looking for you?"
"I'm going in," Maya said. "Just giving them time to settle."
"That's not what you're doing," Hendricks said.
"You're remembering what happened last time you walked through that door."
Maya didn't deny it.
"Good," Hendricks continued. "Remember it. Use it. Walk in there knowing exactly who you are and what you survived. Because some of those men in there are going to test you. They're going to push to see if what happened with Vaughn and Pierce was luck or skill. And when they push, I need you to be the woman who broke 2 grown men in 7 seconds, not the woman who's afraid it might happen again."
"I'm not afraid it will happen again,"
Maya said quietly.
"I'm afraid of what I'll do when it does."
Hendricks smiled. "Then show them that fear. Let them see it in your eyes when they look at you. Fear from you isn't weakness. It's a warning." Maya nodded once, pushed open the door, and walked in. The room went silent instantly. 45 men, all in various stages of SEAL training, all watching her with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed hostility.
She recognized a few faces from the crowd that had witnessed the incident.
Others were new, transferred in after. And in the back row, arms crossed and face set in stone, sat Petty Officer Second Class Marcus Chen. She knew him immediately, not because they'd met, but because he'd submitted a formal complaint 3 days ago, claiming her promotion was politically motivated and undermined qualified male instructors. Maya walked to the front of the room without acknowledging him. She didn't use the microphone, just stood there, hands at her sides, and let the silence build. Finally, she spoke.
"My name is Maya Reeves. Some of you know what happened in this room 2 weeks ago. Some of you heard rumors. Some of you think you know the whole story." She paused. "You don't."
A young candidate near the front shifted uncomfortably.
"Ma'am, we're not here to judge." "Yes, you are," Maya interrupted.
"You're judging whether I earned this position or got it because the brass needed good optics after 2 instructors assaulted me. You're judging whether what I did was justified or excessive. You're judging whether you can learn anything from someone half the size of most operators."
She let that sit for 3 seconds.
"So let me make this easy. The answer to all of those questions is yes."
Confusion rippled through the room.
"Yes, I earned this position through documented combat experience and specialized training," Maya continued. "Yes, what I did was justified because I defended myself against coordinated assault. Yes, it was excessive in the sense that it resulted in serious injury. But that's what happens when you force someone with advanced defensive capabilities to choose between being hurt and hurting back. And yes, you can learn from me despite my size, because the most dangerous people aren't always the biggest. They're the ones who understand exactly how bodies break and refuse to break themselves."
Chen's voice cut from the back.
"So you're here to teach us how to break people?"
Maya turned to face him fully.
"I'm here to teach you how not to die when the enemy isn't just in front of you. It's in your own head. Stress kills more operators than bullets. Panic kills more than IEDs. Bad decisions made under pressure kill entire teams. My job is to make sure you can think when your brain is screaming at you to stop thinking."
"With all due respect, ma'am," Chen said, not sounding respectful at all,
"most of us have been in combat. We know how to handle stress."
"Do you?" Maya asked.
"Then why did 18 SEAL candidates wash out of the program last year, not because they couldn't handle the physical demands, but because they froze during high-stress decision-making exercises? Why did 3 operators die in Ramadi because their team leader panicked and gave the wrong order? Why did a squad in Helmand lose 2 men because the medic couldn't function under fire?" She stepped toward him slowly. You know how to handle controlled stress, training stress, the stress you expect. I'm here to teach you how to handle the stress you don't see coming.
Chen stood up. And you're qualified to teach that because you got captured once? The room held its breath. Maya didn't blink.
I'm qualified because I got captured, interrogated, and escaped after killing 2 insurgents with improvised weapons. I'm qualified because I've defused IEDs while taking fire and bleeding from shrapnel wounds. I'm qualified because I completed a training program designed to break people, and I came out the other side functional. She closed the distance between them. But most importantly, I'm qualified because when 2 men twice my size tried to break me in front of 282 witnesses, I didn't freeze. I didn't panic. I made a decision and executed it. That's what this program teaches, decision-making under impossible conditions.
Chen's jaw worked.
What happened to Vaughn and Pierce wasn't decision-making. It was assault. They assaulted me, Maya said flatly. I defended myself. There's legal documentation, witness testimony, and investigative findings all confirming that. If you have a problem with the facts, take it up with NCIS. I have a problem with you being here, Chen said. Why? Because you're dangerous. Maya smiled, cold and sharp. Good. You should be afraid of me. Fear means you're paying attention.
Fear means you understand that underestimating someone because of how they look is a fatal mistake. Fear means you might actually survive what I'm about to teach you. The room was electric now. Every candidate leaning forward, caught between Chen's challenge and Maya's response. Chen took a step forward. You think breaking 2 men makes you qualified to lead?
I think surviving 3 deployments, completing SEER Level C+, escaping enemy capture, and defending myself against coordinated assault makes me qualified, Maya said.
What makes you think you're qualified to question me? Because I served with Vaughn, Chen said. He was a good operator, a good man, and you destroyed his career over 1 mistake. He destroyed his own career when he kicked me while I was demonstrating training protocols, Maya corrected. He made a choice. I made a different choice. His choice put him in the hospital. Mine kept me out of it.
It wasn't self-defense, Chen said, voice rising.
It was revenge. Maya's expression didn't change. If it was revenge, they'd be dead. The silence was deafening. Chen stared at her, and for the first time, uncertainty flickered across his face. Maya stepped closer, not threatening, just present. You want to challenge me? Fine. But understand what you're challenging. I'm not here because I'm the best fighter. I'm here because I understand what it means to survive when everything in you wants to quit. I'm here because I've made decisions with lives on the line and lived with the consequences. I'm here because the Navy decided that what I know is more valuable than your comfort. She paused. Now sit down or walk out. But if you stay, you follow my instruction. Those are your only options. Chen didn't move for 5 long seconds. Then he sat down. The collective exhale from the room was almost audible. Maya turned back to the front. Today's lesson is about recognition patterns, how to identify when a situation is about to turn hostile before weapons are drawn. How to read body language, vocal patterns, and environmental cues that signal danger. By the end of this session, you'll be able to predict violence 3 to 5 seconds before it happens. That 3 seconds can save your life or your team's lives. She spent the next 2 hours breaking down the exact sequence of events from her own assault, not as victimization, but as tactical analysis. She showed them the micro-expressions Vaughn and Pierce had displayed, the shoulder positioning, the coordinated eye contact, the verbal escalation patterns. And then she did something unexpected. "Chen," she said, "front and center." He stood slowly and walked forward, clearly suspicious. "I'm going to demonstrate threat recognition using you as a volunteer," Maya said. "You're going to approach me with intent to intimidate. Not strike, not grab, just intimidate using presence and positioning. The class will watch and identify the exact moment your body language signals escalation." Chen's eyes narrowed. "You want me to threaten you?" "I want you to attempt intimidation," Maya corrected. "There's a difference. Begin." Chen circled her, using his height and build to create pressure. He moved into her personal space, shoulders squared, chin up. It was textbook dominance positioning. "Stop," Maya said. "Class, what did you just see?" A younger candidate raised his hand. "He invaded your space." "More specific," Maya prompted. Another voice. "His shoulders came forward before he moved, like he was preparing to push." "Exactly," Maya said. "His body telegraphed intent before conscious decision. That's your warning sign. That's your 3 seconds." She looked at Chen. "Continue. This time, make a decision about whether you're going to escalate or not." Chen hesitated, then stepped closer. His hand twitched toward her shoulder. Not a grab, just a movement. Maya's hand came up and intercepted his wrist before his fingers made contact. Not hard, not painful, just there. And that's the counter. Recognition plus reaction equals survival. She released him. Chen stepped back, and something in his expression had changed. Not respect yet, but reassessment. "Again," Maya said. "Different approach." They ran the drill 17 times, with different volunteers, different scenarios, different escalation patterns. By the end, even the most skeptical candidates were watching her movements with focused intensity. When the session ended, Chen approached her as the others filed out. "Ma'am, can I ask you something?" Maya nodded. "Why didn't you break my wrist when I came at you just now? You had the angle. I felt it." "Because you weren't a threat," Maya said simply. "You were testing. There's a difference." "How do you know the difference?" "Practice," Maya said. "A lot of it. Most of it bad." Chen was quiet for a moment. "Vaughn told me you attacked first, that you provoked them into defending themselves." "Vaughn lied," Maya said. "Probably to himself first, then to everyone else. People rewrite their own stories when the truth makes them look weak." "Are you calling him weak?" "I'm calling him unable to accept that he lost control and paid for it," Maya said. "That's different than weakness. That's pride. And pride gets people killed faster than fear ever does." Chen nodded slowly. "I'm sorry I challenged you." "Don't be," Maya said. "You had every right to challenge me. You just didn't have the facts to support your challenge. Now you do. What you do with those facts is up to you." "I'd like to stay in the program," Chen said. "If you'll have me." Maya studied him. "On one condition." "Ma'am?" "You tell me the truth about why you're really here. Not the official reason. The real one." Chen's face tightened. "I lost a team member in Mosul. He froze during a room breach. Took a round to the neck because he couldn't decide whether to engage or hold. Bled out in 40 seconds. His voice cracked. I want to make sure that doesn't happen to anyone else." Maya's expression softened. "Then you're here for the right reason. And yes, you can stay." The weeks that followed proved harder than the first session. Word spread about her methods, intense, psychological, designed to push candidates past their breaking points without physical injury. Some washed out, others thrived. But slowly,
Steadily, the culture began to shift. 3 months after her promotion, Maya was conducting a stress inoculation drill when Lieutenant Commander Kessler appeared in the observation area. He watched silently for 30 minutes, then approached her during the break. "I need to tell you something," he said. Maya waited. "I lost 3 men in Ramadi because they couldn't adapt when the mission went sideways. They had all the training, all the gear, all the support, but when the plan failed, they froze. And they died." He paused. "I've been watching your program for 12 weeks now. The candidates coming out of your sessions don't freeze. They adapt. They think. They survive scenarios that would have killed the men I lost." "That's the goal," Maya said quietly. "It's more than that," Kessler said. "You're changing how we prepare operators, not just for combat, but for the psychological warfare that happens before bullets fly. That's going to save lives. Real lives, not theoretical ones." "I hope so," Maya said. "I know so," Kessler corrected. "And I wanted you to know that every time I see one of your candidates make a good decision under pressure, I think about my team. And I think about how they'd still be here if someone like you had trained them." His voice was rough. "So thank you for what you do, and for what you survived to be able to do it." He walked away before she could respond. 6 months after the incident, Maya received a message to report to Captain Hendrix's office. When she arrived, she found Hendrix standing with a young woman in navy dress blues, 19, maybe 20, with wide eyes and visible nervousness. "Petty Officer Reeves, this is Seaman Recruit Ashley Morrison. She's EOD track, just finished basic, and she asked to meet you." Maya extended her hand. Morrison shook it with surprising firmness. "Ma'am, I wanted to thank you," Morrison said. "For what?" "For showing me it's possible." Morrison's voice steadied. "I'm the only woman in my EOD class. 15 men, 1 me. Every day someone tells me I don't belong, that I'm taking a spot from someone more qualified, that I'll wash out before certification." She met Maya's eyes. "But then I heard what happened to you. How you defended yourself. How you didn't quit. How you turned it into something bigger. And I realized that if you can survive all that and still be here, still be teaching, still be proving them wrong, then maybe I can too." Maya's throat tightened. "You can more than survive. You can excel. Don't let anyone make you smaller to make themselves feel bigger." "Did you ever want to quit?" Morrison asked quietly. "Every day," Maya admitted. "Every single day something happens that makes me question whether this fight is worth it. But then I remember that every time I stay, every time I push back, every time I refuse to be erased, I'm making it easier for the next woman, for you, for the ones who come after you. That's worth fighting for." Morrison nodded, blinking rapidly. "I won't quit, ma'am." "Good," Maya said, "because the Navy needs operators like you. And when you get to the fleet, if anyone tries to tell you different, you remind them that Maya Reeves said competence doesn't have a gender. It just has standards. Meet the standards, and the rest is noise." 1 year after the incident, Maya returned to the same training compound where it all happened. Same concrete, same wind off the Atlantic, same platform where she'd been kicked and fought back and changed everything. But this time, 300 people assembled, not just SEALs. Combat medics, EOD specialists, support personnel, and 47 women in uniform, all of them present because Maya had requested they be included in this particular session. She stood at the center of the platform and looked at the crowd, so much larger than the 282 who'd witnessed her breaking point and her breakthrough.
"A year ago, I was assaulted in this exact spot," she began. "Two men decided I didn't belong here and tried to prove it with violence. They failed. Not because I'm stronger than them, but because I refused to accept their version of who I should be." The crowd was absolutely silent. "What I'm about to teach you isn't about fighting. It's about refusing to break when the world tries to break you. It's about making decisions when every instinct screams at you to freeze. It's about surviving not just the enemy in front of you, but the doubt inside you." She gestured to the 47 women. "These women are here because they've been told they don't belong, because they've been questioned, challenged, dismissed, and underestimated. Some of them are still being told those things. Some of them believe it." She paused. "I'm here to tell you that belonging isn't something anyone grants you. It's something you claim. And today, you're going to claim it." She spent 3 hours teaching them the same techniques she'd used to defend herself, not as violence, but as empowerment. She showed them how to recognize threat patterns, how to de-escalate, how to defend when de-escalation fails, how to walk away alive and whole. And when it was over, a young female corpsman approached her with tears streaming down her face. "Ma'am, I was going to quit tomorrow. I had the paperwork filled out. But after today..." She couldn't finish. Maya pulled her aside. "Why were you quitting?" "Because I'm tired of fighting," the corpsman whispered. "Tired of proving myself every single day. Tired of being the problem just by existing." "I understand," Maya said. "I've been there. Hell, some days I'm still there. But here's what I learned. You're not the problem. Their inability to see your value is the problem. And when you quit, they win. They get to point at your empty chair and say, 'See, women can't handle this.' Is that the legacy you want to leave?" The corpsman wiped her eyes. "No, ma'am." "Then don't quit," Maya said firmly. "Stay, fight, excel. And when it gets hard, and it will get hard, remember that somewhere out there, another woman is watching you the same way you watched me. And she's deciding whether to stay or go based on what you do next. Be the reason she stays." The corpsman nodded, straightened her shoulders, and walked away with her head up. Captain Hendricks had watched the entire exchange from a distance. She approached as the crowd dispersed. "You know what you've built here?" Hendricks asked. "A program," Maya said. "A movement," Hendricks corrected. "You've changed how this base trains operators. You've changed how women see themselves in uniform. You've changed the conversation from whether women belong to how we support everyone who meets the standard." She smiled. "That's legacy, Maya. Real, lasting legacy." Maya looked around the compound, at the platform where she'd been broken and rebuilt, at the faces of operators who now respected rather than doubted her, at the women who saw her as proof that survival was possible. "It cost everything," she said quietly. "The things worth having usually do," Hendricks replied. "But you paid that cost and turned it into something that helps others. That's not just survival. That's transformation." Maya nodded slowly. "I'm not done yet." "Good," Hendricks said, "because neither are they. The fight doesn't end. But now, when women in this military face that fight, they know they're not alone. They know someone survived and thrived. They know your name." And in that moment, standing on the same ground where two men had tried to erase her and failed, Maya Reeves understood what she'd actually won. Not just the fight, not just the vindication, not just the promotion. She'd won the right to redefine what strength looked like, not as the absence of vulnerability, but as the refusal to let vulnerability become defeat. She'd proven that surviving
wasn't enough. Thriving was the real victory. And she'd shown every woman who came after her that when someone tries to break you, the most powerful response isn't just standing back up. It's standing taller than you did before.